Hello and welcome to Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering. Here we have Dan on Hive Mind versus Lucas on Yorion and Taxes, which I'm not going to lie is at this point a distinct deck from Death and Taxes. Yorion and Taxes has that inevitability with the Sky Noodle himself that you can bounce with Caracas to essentially just never run out of gas, and becomes much more of a mid-range deck compared to the more aggro style of traditional Death and Taxes. Some Aether Vials coming down, which can set up for that type of mid to long game, but Hive Mind's not going to want that to happen. They're going to want to get Death and Taxes out of there, or Yorion and Taxes out of there as fast as possible, using Hive Mind to copy spells for both players. Now, you might not understand how that works if you're unfamiliar with the deck. Why would giving your opponent copies of spells be a good thing? And that's because you're actually playing a bunch of packs. Pact of the Titan, Pact of Negation, Slaughter Pact, Summoner's Pact, cards that during your upkeep you have to pay a certain amount of mana, and if you don't, you lose the game. So if Dan can get a Hive Mind into play and cast a Pact of the Titan, Lucas, during his upkeep, will have to pay the upkeep or lose, which is pretty brutal. Now, Death and Taxes also picked up a new trick with Sudden Substitution, allowing you to play a Pact and then respond with this split-second card to steal one of your opponent's creatures and give them a Pact for it. So that is what Dan is going to be looking to do. We'll see if he's able to. So far, there's a bunch of dual lands over there, which is very dangerous. We've got a Stifle, stopping Aether Vial. Five mana for Hive Mind is 6. Okay, so that was just a error there. Hive Mind is 6 mana. Now, traditionally, Hive Mind decks actually run 3 copies of Grim Monolith to go along with those soul lands. Oh, and he's got it the other way. Well, that's brutal. So wasn't able to cast the Hive Mind, but he still has the Sudden Substitution in hand. And just like we talked about, that game is over. During Lucas's upkeep, he's not going to be able to pay 4 in a red, and he's going to die to his own Pact trigger, courtesy of Dan's Sudden Substitution. Mother of Runes not really able to help there, even though this does exchange a target creature. Mother of Runes isn't going to be able to activate in response as it has split second. So that is actually a significant new tool. I don't know if it's necessarily better than the original builds of Hive Mind previously when they were able to run Mystical Tutor way back, but this is an interesting build. I know at one point there was a Limdual's Vault version, and I don't remember. But basically you're looking to show and tell or cast your Hive Mind. Grim Monolith in the past would allow you to go turn 1 Soul Land into a Monolith, and then turn 2 cast Hive Mind. It was very, very fast. Flusterstorm and Daze's popularity are kind of issues for this deck. Now, you might think Counter Magic could be good versus it, but as it turns out, counter spells after Hive Mind have landed are of basically no use, as you end up they end up giving you a copy of Force of Will. So if I play a Pact of Negation or Pact of the Titan and you have Force of Will, you can play Force targeting your own Pact of the Titan, but I get a copy of Force, which I would then use to counter your Force of Will. So it's pretty dicey. Definitely a deck that people misplay against quite frequently, as it's got a lot of complex interactions. Figuring out which card to bottom. Much bigger decision than people give it credit for. I really enjoy the new Mulligan rule. Also amuses me looking back at how people thought the sky was falling when they changed the Mulligan rule. All really eliminates a decent amount of the non-games. I've seen people win on mulls to 4. At least be able to play some lands. Spirit of the Labyrinth, and one of those cards that honestly Death and Taxes would love to have access to, especially with Recruiter of the Guard, but it wasn't until Yorion beefed up the deck size that you start to see all of these role-playing cards that can really be extremely powerful in certain matchups, but terrible in others, finding their way into the deck. Decks that don't draw extra cards, things like Burn, Goblins, a lot of the aggro decks that aren't blue really don't draw much in the way of cards, so Spirited Labyrinth would be pretty terrible there. Now we've got a end of turn dress down, so this is actually going to stick around till the end of Dan's turn. Lucas likely to use his Wasteland here just to try and prevent Dan's turn from being lethal. And he does. Oh, interesting. I guess that wasn't during the step. Oh, I guess it was in response to the Stoneforge Mystic. Okay. Thought he was going to attempt to draw some cards with the Spirit. Dress down can be used in a variety of ways there. Kind of just a stifle that draws a card, which is fine at 2 mana. There are a lot of instances, I believe, one of our viewers actually pointed out recently, different video, how it seems like there's a lot of situations where you'd rather have Stifle than your Dress down. Now we've got a Skyclave Apparition played for just straight up no value. Dan's going to force a Will It. It's not going to matter. Got to pay the 1 and go to 6, so he's dead to the 6 anyways. 6 on board. Question is, what can he do? It's got to be in hand already, as the Spirit's not going to let him draw extra cards. And scooping. That is what he can do here. He scoops it up when we are on to the next game. Yeah, Spirit really does force you to have it. Of course, it feels terrible for the Yorion and Taxes player when you just have it anyways. They play a kind of useless 3-1 for 2. You just have the combo in hand, but you know that's what you sign up for when you're playing a deck like Yorion and Taxes or Death and Taxes. If they have it, you know, sometimes there's just nothing you can do about it. You don't have Force of Will, but very often your mana denial is going to drag the game out, potentially tilt it in your favor the longer it goes. Between your Wastelands and your Rishadan Ports, Thalia, making all your spells cost more. That's a notable drawback of Yorion and Taxes too, by the way. You'll notice that's 2 games without Thalia, something you almost never see from Death and Taxes. Death and Taxes, a 60-card deck, is very consistently going to have access to a Thalia. You're potentially going to mulligan into it, whereas there's a much wider range of acceptable hands for Yorion and Taxes. Now, perhaps not necessarily in this matchup. Perhaps there are a lot of hands that could be kept versus a random opponent that once you know you're playing against this type of dangerous combo deck, may be more aggressive, making sure that you have some type of bear to interact with them. Either get some fast mana to cast a Hive Mind, show and tell a Hive Mind, or perhaps sudden substitution. Those are really his only paths to victory. And we have a Crystal Vein being sacrificed. Kind of a poor man's City of Traders. Dan's been picking up an incredible amount of legacy cards lately. It's been a lot of fun to see him brewing and playing all these crazy decks. Don't think he's picked up cities yet. I think this is actually instead of a city. And he gets a Hive Mind off of it. And no Pact. So just jamming the Hive Mind out there. Deafening Silence. That is a super rude card here. Oh, wow. Deafening Silence is fairly awful. That's going to stop the sudden substitution line. This death and actually, I guess it doesn't matter too much. He already has the Hive Mind on board. But just in general, it's a strong card in the matchup. Now we've got an Echoing Truth. Oh, look at this. Attempting to Pactive Negation. So it does end up mattering. So we have Echoing Truth. Copy the Echoing Truth. Lucas opts to return the Hive Mind. And oh yeah, this is a one of those played yourself situations. The deck's complicated. Usually it's your opponent making the error, and that deafening silence, absolutely just what a mess that is. So Dan, without the deafening and silence in play, would have been able to use Echoing Truth to target with his own active negation. And then Lucas would be losing to his pack during the upkeep. As it is, it's going to be like pretty much impossible for Dan to play a pact of negation on his turn. Now we have an end step dress down. The deafening silence still remains, causing all sorts of problems. He will be able to draw a card off of it, as Spirit of the Labyrinth will have no abilities. And that part of the card resolves. And that's going to do it. Yeah, that deafening silence ends up being totally crucial, completely backbreaking there, as Dan would have had it. Yeah, we see a Slaughter Pact potentially could have helped out there. But at the end of the day, not able to play Pact of Negation from his hand. Find a way to win. Wow, what a unusual matchup. We don't get to see Hive Mind very much.